Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Marshall, pronouns she, her. I live in the district of Assemblymember Chris Friend up here in MAGA country, New York. And tonight I am drinking a New York State cider from a local cidery, which is really lovely. And we have a great program for you tonight. So please keep introducing yourselves in the chat and we're going to get going. We're going to have some really great presenters tonight, and then we're going to actually have a little mini work session in some breakout rooms, and I hope you will join us. So next slide, please. Okay, just for level setting where we are with the New York Heat Act, which most of you are here because you've been working on it with us, either for the past year, the past 2 years, or maybe even the past 3 years, because we've been working on this bill for quite some time. And we had a really magnificent campaign this year where we came so close to winning the New York Heat Act at the very end of session. But we just didn't quite get it over the finish line for a couple of reasons. And so I'm going to really briefly go over those, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do next. So basically, I'll just recap for you. The governor put some key pieces of New York Heat in her budget. The Senate put the whole bill in their budget. It did not make it into the budget negotiations because the Assembly just didn't come to the table with a meaningful proposal on New York Heat at all. So then in the post-budget session, which was, mid-April through the beginning of June, what we were really keeping the pressure on, and it was really working. We heard that the staff from the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor were working in three-way negotiations to try to find a deal everyone could live with on New York Heat. And that is a pretty unusual thing to actually happen post-budget. Usually the governor's office isn't really involved after the budget, and it's up to have houses of the legislature to pass legislation. But they were really working in earnest to try to come to a deal. There were some concerns in the Assembly about the politics of passing the bill, not so much about the bill itself, but more about blowback that they were concerned about getting from either constituents or from the fossil fuel industry or from Republicans. And at the very last final days of session, they were very close to making a deal. And it was actually leaked to Marie French of Politico, and you can read what she wrote about it, what was in that deal. But it was not everything in New York Heat Act, but they did tackle some big pieces of it, and they tried, to delay it, of course, because that's what they do. But what happened was, in the last week of session, Governor Hochul decided to roll back the congestion pricing in New York City. And when that happened, all hell broke loose in Albany. Everyone stopped talking to everyone else. The Senate decided to just go home. They were done with their work, and New York Heat was left unfinished on the table. So it was incredibly disappointing and sad. And here we are on the hamster wheel, running. And we still have to regroup and start to re-engage with two key targets, the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor. All right, that was a lot of words. Let's go on to the next slide. So how are we going to re-engage? Well, we're going to have to formulate a plan for next session and into the fall. But in the next 6 weeks, we have some things we're going to work on together, and that's what we're going to cover in this call. Last year, we had a very robust campaign targeting the governor all through the fall and leading up to January, and then we switched to the Assembly. We're going to sort of do some ground truthing, whether we need to do the exact same thing again this year, or whether we can be assured that the governor is going to put the same things in her budget or better things in the budget than she did last year. We're going to figure that out. But meanwhile, we need to keep the pressure on her in the media, because she's really come under a lot of pressure in the media around all of the climate problems, the rollback of congestion pricing, the reports that came out that said we're not going to make our climate goals under CLCPA, and of course, failure to pass the New York Heat Act. So we can connect all of these things in the public's mind and direct that rage and I don't know what else to call it, disappointment at the governor. And because this is already a story, the media will keep covering it, and that will put pressure on her. Meanwhile, we really need to get pressure on the assembly in their own district and have them hearing from their constituents. And we're going to talk about some different ways to do that. So we've got some great presenters on this call. I'm going to, if she's able to, we're going to start with Liz Moran of Earthjustice, who's going to talk to us about in-district lobbying. Liz, are you able to talk? She's on a train.
Yeah, are you all able to hear me okay?
You sound good. Next slide, please.
Wonderful. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be with you all this evening. I'm sorry that you cannot see me. I am currently on the Amtrak, heading back to Albany from New York City. But I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about next steps. Lisa did a great job summarizing everything that went down this past session, the tail end of session, and the politics that are coloring things now, which makes in-district lobbying and impacting your local representatives, in particular your assembly member, very important. So, in-district lobbying. This is a great tactic for when the legislature is out of session, which they currently are. Standard legislative session is January through June. And right now they're all back home and they're in district. So this is an opportunity for constituents to meet with your assembly member, with their office, and talk about things that you care about. And constituents talking to lawmakers is some of the most impactful lobbying that can happen. Because you're their constituent. You're someone that will be voting, hopefully, this November, and they need to care about you as their constituent. So that's part of why it's an effective tactic as well. Constituents are voters, and ultimately this is an issue that representatives or people looking to get into office should care about. New York State getting passed and championing. It's also really important to target the assembly in particular here because, as Lisa mentioned, the assembly has a little bit of a sticking point on this legislation. And we need to make sure that we keep the heat on the assembly over the course of the summer and fall, so they are pressured to be in a stronger position this coming legislative session and budget season in particular. You know, we started to do great work in moving the assembly. This legislation got very close to crossing the finish line, I think, with some very strategic in-district lobbying, and combined with other actions, which we'll be discussing in the course of this call, we have the opportunity to put the assembly in a stronger position than where they were next year. So yeah, I think I'll pass it over to who's going to the next chapter.
Thanks, Liz. And join Liz and probably me in a breakout later if you would like to meet with your assembly member, especially if you haven't done one of these meetings before and you want to sort of figure out how to make that work in your own district. And if your assembly member is a Republican, then I'll ask you to pick a different breakout because we are not going to waste your time or hours meeting with Republicans on this bill. It's just not strategic. So there's other things we can do. So if your assembly person is a Democrat, they hold the power, they have the majority. So we're just going to deal directly with them. Thanks so much, Liz. And next up, we have, next slide, please. Petitioning with, and I advertised that this was going to be with the wonderful Laura Schindel of Food and Water Watch. And instead we have another wonderful organizer, Shay O'Reilly from Springstreet Climate Fund. So Shay, let's hear all about petitioning.
Great. I have some big shoes to fill. There are Laura's shoes, and I will do my best to do it. I had some dental work this afternoon. They told me I wouldn't be numb anymore, but please bear with me. And if you need any clarity on anything I say, let me know. I'll repeat myself gladly. So petitioning is getting signatures from the general public to demonstrate broad support for our issue. It's literally taking a big sheet of paper where people can fill in their name and their contact info and going out to the public to talk to them. The lobbying that we're doing, that we just talked about, basically matters most if the legislator knows that you have people power behind you. And petitioning is our way of identifying other constituents and people who the legislator has to listen to give us power when we lobby. That way, when we have these meetings, we can go to the meeting and say, hey, look, here's how many of your constituents want this. Ideally, you have like a big stack of petitions you can just slam down on the table really satisfyingly, and it forces them to be active. Legislators need to know that something's popular in their district in order to prioritize it. They also, really importantly, need to know that we're taking it to the public in their district. A lot of legislators we've talked to, they may believe that this is something that only advocates care about and that their constituents don't know about this issue. By petitioning, by being visible in their district, talking to people about them and about this issue, they start to notice that, hey, people do care about this. It does matter to my constituents. I better do something to get it done. So petitioning also grows our movement. When you're petitioning, you're getting people's contact information. We can talk more about that in the breakout session about how to maximize the chances that they'll feel comfortable giving that to you, how to address people's concerns about it. But you're building the power of your organization by identifying people who care about it. If we're not growing, we tend to be shrinking. And the most important thing for our movement to be strong is for all of our individual organizations to be strong and to be continually building power in our communities. We can build power. We can build the amount of people we invite to our mobilization events when we go to Albany. We can get more calls into legislators, and we can build that public awareness and power. Make it something people are talking about on the street. Make it something that when your assembly member is on the street, somebody's shouting at them, hey, are we gonna get New York Heat done this year in a friendly way? People know about this because we're talking to them about it, and we can convert that talking to people about it into demonstrable power when we get petitions, get those signatures, and get them in front of legislators. So I'm going to share a petitioning opportunity in the West Village with Food and Water Watch in the chat if you're local to the area. And if you join our breakout group, I will talk to you more about how to do it most successfully and what you can do with it and how to get a really beautiful petition sheet that has your assembly member's face on it too.
That's wonderful, Shay. So say you live in a district where your assembly member is already a co-sponsor of the bill and has like spoken at our events and is really supportive. Does it make sense to do a petition for that member? Yes or no?
It does, because the other person that we're targeting in our petitions is Governor Kathy Hochul. So anywhere in the state, even if you have a Republican assembly member who's never going to support New York Heat, you can bring a petition that says, Kathy Hochul, let's get New York Heat done. And you can show that because everybody in the state is her constituent.
Yeah, and well, what if your member is like a champion, like Emily Gallagher, Anna Kellis? Does it help them to have petitions signed in their district?
Absolutely, because when you're a legislator, right, you build power in your elections, right? You prove that you have people behind you, and then you go to Albany and you use that political power and that political capital to get your bills done. If you're facing pushback from any of your colleagues or from the industry, you can point to a big stack of petitions and say, look, my constituents want this to happen. It's a really great way for them to get the cover they need to fight for our bill.
That was the right answer. Perfect. Thank you. So join Shay in the petitioning breakout to find out more about how you can do petitioning. I remember my daughters started Sunrise Rochester, and member Harry Bronson owns a cafe. So Sunrise Rochester decided to set up petitioning for, I think it was all electric buildings right outside of his coffee shop as a friendly but very noticeable way to get attention. So that is a great tactic that you can do anywhere. Next slide, please. Okay, do we have Priscilla on the call? Oh no, sorry. Do we have Stephanie Doba and Ashanti? Stephanie Doba, who leads the Sierra Club letter writing team that is just an absolute powerhouse in New York, and the wonderful Ashanti Washington from Sunstone Strategies are going to talk to you about letters to the editor. So Stephanie, take it away.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for inviting me to this event. So what we do, my team is volunteers, and I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club. And for about 9 years, we've been organizing, uh, writing and submitting letters to the editor to newspapers around New York State about climate issues. So that's all we do. We just do letters to the editor. So we've gotten very familiar with this little art form and how it works. What it does is get your constituent opinion in front of elected officials. That's our main target, as Lisa's indicating throughout. We're looking to influence Governor Hochul and influence other elected officials to do what we want them to do by calling them out in our letters. And they track these things. We believe that they have staffers who track what is being said about them in the media. So it just helps to show the volume of different people submitting letters, public support for the issue, and get it in front of also your neighbors and people who live in your area. The how letters grow our power, as I say, is by showing public support for the issues. Now, letters to the editor are a kind of interesting art form because when you submit one, it doesn't mean it will get published. So we have developed strategies and techniques to make it more likely that a letter does get published. And I'd be happy to tell you about that and show you how you can submit a letter that you don't even have to write yourself. We will help you write it or draft one that's unique that you can submit. And we'll tell you all about that in the breakout session.
Wonderful. And Stephanie, what if you are a really good writer, but you don't have a paper in your area? Can you help with this effort?
Absolutely. The Albany Times Union is a statewide publication. They accept letters from anywhere in New York State. And you'd be surprised what publications may exist that you don't necessarily know about. And we have a resource to find those publications according to where you live, what media markets they cover, and we can help you with talking points if you want to start from scratch and write your own letter, and really walk you through a process of how to construct a persuasive letter, increase the likelihood that it gets published, and of course, how and where to submit it. We also keep track in my team of who's submitting to where on what themes so that we can look for them to be published and then report back on the successes we're having every week.
Amazing. So Stephanie and Ashanti will be leading that breakout. So if you are new to submitting a letter, I think it's a really empowering tactic to try. And, you know, that's a great thing for someone who's more introverted. Maybe you would rather die than do petitioning. Maybe even going to a lobby meeting and speaking to your assembly person is something that doesn't excite you, but you can submit this letter without ever talking to the people you submit them mostly online with a little help from Stephanie and Ashanti. So join that effort, and we're I think, Stephanie, did you say there's a goal of 50 letters on New York Heat with name IDing Kathy Hochul this summer?
Well, on New York Heat and in general, her disappointing us, not standing up for New York Heat, as well as torpedoing congestion pricing. This is something that Shay has actually suggested, that if we can get 50 letters on those themes, they can be brought in front of the governor or her staff. So we're already up to 30 in my team. So
that's amazing.
This group can help put us over the top.
We can print them out and satisfyingly swack them down on the table in a lobby meeting.
Exactly.
Along with the petition. All right. Thanks, Stephanie. So next up, we have, last but definitely not least, Priscilla Grimm from Sane Energy Project. Next slide, please. And Priscilla is really knowledgeable about different kinds of communications forms, and she's going to tell you why you should consider social media a good place to engage with your advocacy work. So Priscilla, where are you? There you are. Take it away.
Thanks. Hey, everyone. So what is social media in the context of advocacy? So social media is like everything else. It's a tool, and it's a tool for speaking to those who hold power, those who critique power, and those fighting together to uplift political campaigns and ideologies. Those who critique power are sometimes journalists and other times other advocacy organizations, both of which are your allies in making change through communications. Bringing your message into the interactive platform of social media has been game-changing for movements since 2011, starting with the Arab Spring uprisings of Tunisia and Egypt in 2011 to Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, and recent history in which anytime elected officials are targeted with social media campaigns, they respond. They do not always respond in the ways that we want, but they do respond. So why is social media advocacy effective? Social media advocacy is effective because it is an unignorable public form of engagement with elected officials and those who hold power. With elected officials, which is what we are most concerned with here at the happy hour, they do not want to be publicly shamed for poor policy work. They also like to be informed of new possibilities, but also the public can learn how better policies like the New York Heat Act could substantively improve their lives with both cheaper energy bills and cleaner heating possibilities. The public can then take action to advocate for themselves in making phone calls and sending emails to elected officials. And when elected officials are receiving hundreds of calls and emails every day, being tagged in status updates on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, the public demand is impossible to ignore. So how does engaging on social media grow our power? Engaging on social media grows our power, like in the other ways that we spoke about tonight, by making our work visible. We can amplify each other's calls and make the feelings of the public undeniable. We can sign up for each other's email lists and attend events on the streets and in the halls of power. Engaging on social media creates community around a common cause. The Me Too movement not only brought community together, but created a shared moment in which people fighting gender-based violence were able to understand explicitly how common harassment still was in public life while demanding accountability. The Black Lives Matter movement shed light on how undeniably ubiquitous police brutality was throughout the United States and brought together people demanding solutions through the lens of racial justice. We are now in a place in which some police are fired immediately and incarcerated when they are seen on video to have murdered their latest victim. The climate movement can now broadcast videos of actions worldwide, uniting an entire community demanding climate action. The climate justice movement can now build sustained numbers to demand action not imagined 15 years ago. We can pair when there's the next big hurricane or big climate event or flooding happening in your neighborhood. You can bring that together with the idea of, hey, if we did something like the New York Heat Act, we would not be vulnerable in the same way to these weather events. These weather events would not happen as often. And so when we're uplifting each other's messages, when we're reaching out to elected officials, when we're uplifting messages that other people send to elected officials, it makes our movement undeniable. People have to pay attention, and they will, and they do. So again, it's just one piece of all the different ways in which we've been talking tonight about how to engage with public officials and how to engage with our state government. I really do believe that social media can do this in a substantive way and has been doing it since 2011. So In the example in this slide, I just want to point out, so at St. Energy, we also work with the No North Brooklyn Pipeline Alliance. One of the activists published an op-ed had an op-ed that was published this afternoon. So we put up this tweet, and in this tweet, we tagged the No North Brooklyn Pipeline Alliance. We tagged National Grid to let them know we're on to them. And we tagged the New York Heat Act because that's the one thing that can help us through them trying to put through a rate hike for things that we don't need or want. And we'll see what happens. So this is just one example of many, but yeah, that's it. I'm done, Chuck.
Thank
I
you
can't wait to meet you in the breakout group. Sorry.
so much, Priscilla. So if you have stayed away from social media, and would consider using social media as a tool for advocacy, I'll tell you one quick story, which you've probably heard of the Ithaca Green New Deal. Well, Ithaca, New York has all these amazing climate activists who have done incredible work. They've done statewide work, local work. They've led in the fight against fracking. And we had this very dynamic, handsome, popular young mayor, Savante Myrick. And all of these climate activists had many, many meetings with him about climate action that the city should take, and briefed him on all these different things and got nowhere. But when a group of students at Ithaca College started tagging him on Twitter, within days, he held a press conference and declared a Green New Deal for Ithaca. So if you don't think social media is a powerful organizing tool, let me just leave you with that. A lot of electeds are very protective of their social media image, and they pay attention to what's happening on social media. So now we are going to stop screen sharing, and I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and just please choose whatever breakout room you want to go into, and then we'll work in the breakout rooms on doing these various tactics for 25 minutes. And we'll come back here at 5 minutes for the end and to wrap up, drink a toast to the Renewable Heat Now movement, and sign up for the September Power Hour. So I'm going to open the breakouts now. So Philomena is asking how she can access. We can share this in an email and a follow-up email, but I'm going to share it in Zoom chat. Here is a spreadsheet link that has in it 4 tabs at the bottom. And if you look at the tabs, you'll see there's one for petitioning, one for lobbying, one for social media, and there's one that has materials. So it has like the sample letters to the editor, but also our team is willing to and happy to schedule a one-on-one to support you with a letter to the editor as well. So just go ahead and let us know if you would like to do that. Okay, so we have a few, so thanks everybody so much for doing that work session. Thanks especially to our presenters and facilitators. I visited all of the breakout rooms, and a lot of great things were going on in all of them. So I'm just so grateful to everybody. I wanted to share one of the questions we get when we talk about transitioning off the gas system and electrifying all of New York's buildings is, where's the money going to come from? And New York State has a proposal to initiate something called a Cap and Invest program that will collect money that will be for the energy transition. And this program was introduced by the governor, but now I think she seems to be getting cold feet. This seems to be a pattern. And if you want to learn more about this and how to take action, that we are having a teach-in tomorrow at noon. New Yorkers for Clean Power is hosting a teach-in tomorrow at noon. And we have a comment link. So those are going to be shared in the chat. So if you're free tomorrow at noon or want to have the information emailed to you, please sign up for that. Our next Renewable Heat Now Power Hour will be Thursday, September 12th. And the sign up for that and get reminders for that is in the chat as well. Speaking of social media, do find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. We do post the power hours on our channel after we're done, and we edited out the bloopers. So those get posted within a few days usually. Tomorrow in the West Village, if you live in that area of New York, please join the petitioning with Food and Water Watch from 4 to 6. And decide for yourself what tactics you want to complete. But all of you have some community that you can bring what you learned on this call back to and get them involved. So if you're part of a local organization or a statewide organization, bring back these materials and these ideas to your group, to your next meeting. If you're part of a faith community, if you're part of the sewing circle, if you're part of Indivisible, wherever your group is, bring back this organizing knowledge that you learned and help get more people involved in writing letters, petitioning, using social media, and lobbying. So we're here to support you. I'll put my email in the chat. You can follow up with me, or you can always email me. And I think with that, Melissa, maybe we'll unshare and we'll drink a toast. And take a screenshot of all of our, and we can post our beautiful images on social media to show our power of our movement and how much fun we had at the happy hour, so that the people who blew us off to watch the Olympics instead will feel jealous that they weren't here. So Melissa, can you take the screenshot? So 1, 2, 3, cheers.